Vernomatic Productions.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold. We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, enjoying the beginning of summer. I certainly am. Well, tonight's show, we have Gil Moore, drummer of Triumph. Gil's here to talk about the just released tribute album, Magic Power, the all-star tribute to Triumph. This album's jam-packed with some of the best contemporary rock and metal performers out there. People like Slash and Dee Snider, Sebastian, Bach. Let's see, who else is on there? Nancy Wilson of Hearts doing some kick-ass versions. Nita, Strauss. Jeff Keith of Tesla. It goes on and on and on. Joey Belladonna of Anthrax. It's produced by Mike Clink of Guns N' Roses fame. And Mike orchestrated this back at the beginning of COVID. And it took a few years to get it out. Well, Gil breaks down how Clink put this together, what songs they did on this, some the arrangements, why they did some of these songs. We talk about Triumph's current ties to NHL hockey, some new memorabilia, and a lot of cool stories. It's an excellent interview, and it's up to the minute. Just announced today that Triumph is going to be getting together for a pre-concert before one of the Stanley Cup Playoff games. Just saw it when I went to air to do this, so that's excited. That's not addressed, but Gil does talk about what's in store for Triumph moving forward. Some surprises in there. But before we get into that, just a quick reminder, head up to metalmayhemroc.com, sign up for the newsletter. There you'll get updates on everything we're doing here. Visit the merch page with hoodies, hats, t-shirts, phone cases. And if you like what we're doing here, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Leave us a review. That helps us get new listeners and other metalheads find the show. So it's a win-win for all. Again, that's metalmayhemroc.com. All right, let's get into this. Gil Moore, Triumph, the brand new one, Magic Power, all-star tribute to Triumph. For my co-host, Metal Walt, I'm the Vernomatic, and we are Metal Mayhem ROC. Today, we welcome back to the show our friend Gil Moore from the Canadian band Triumph. The new one is coming out, the tribute, Magic Power, all-star tribute to Triumph. Gil, good evening. Welcome back to the show. How are you, man?
Hey, it's a good night here in Toronto. Nice to be back. Nice to see you guys.
How did this project come about? Refresh us.
So the reason it took so long, and that's probably why you're a little fuzzy on it there, John, is because it just took forever. And the reason it took forever is because of COVID. So, Mike Clink started this, and then the next thing you know, all the recording studios were closed down. You couldn't travel properly. You get quarantined. All of that stuff kicked in, as you'll remember. We all remember. And so he had to navigate his way through. And, I think a lesser man might have given up altogether, but he was determined to, get it done. And of course, being in Los Angeles is kind of the hotbed of a lot of the best players in rock and metal. There's many of them that live there. So he soldiered on, and that's why it took so long. That's why it's finally happened now. It was that whole COVID slowdown thing.
Gil, how did Mike get involved to begin with? Was he the genesis of this idea, or was you guys in the Triumph camp that said, hey, we want to do this?
No, this was Mike's baby. I mean, he and a record company, of course, provoked it in the very beginning, I suppose. But, when we were approached about it by Roundhill, we just went, well, there's only one guy that we know that we would trust. We worked with great producers over the years, don't get me wrong, but and some of them are good friends like Eddie Kramer. But Mike is in a special place by himself with us. And, so we stayed in touch. since he did Sport of Kings with us, and he was just the logical guy, and he showed all this enthusiasm for doing it, and said, yeah, put me behind the board and let's see what we can do. So we gave him the keys, and away he went.
Why was it the idea to do a tribute album the right plan?
That's a good question, because I've been asked this quite a few times. Like, did you ever think, there'd be a tribute album to Triumph? And of course, the answer is no. I don't even know where these things come from. You start out as a young musician and you're just trying to, get beyond the high school gym or the church basement or wherever you're playing. So some notion of a tribute album or some other musicians actually liking your stuff and playing it seems fanciful. And that stays with you your whole life. When I look at so many of the musicians and singers that are on this tribute album, I'm their fan too. So it just sort of takes your breath away in a little bit to see all those names lined up there, those great guitarists, great singers, great drummers, and it's humbling for the Mike Rick. I can speak for Mike and Rick on that one too. I know we all feel humbled by the whole experience. And grateful.
Whose idea was it to get a cast of heavy Canadian artists?
I'm not sure I've never been asked that, John. I don't know what percentage of them would be Canadian. I mean, you've got, Alex and Lifeson, of course, and the boys in Envy of None. Maya's an American. And then Lawrence Gowan from Styx, obviously Canadian. Phil, obviously Canadian, transplanted to LA. But if I go down the list, there's probably a lot more Americans on there.
Overall, it's an impressive list. I mean, just to name a few of the performers on here: Dee Snider, Mickey Thomas, Dorothy, Slash, Paul Gilbert, Nancy Wilson, Kenny Aronoff, Joey Belladonna, Jeff Keith, Dean Castronota, Nita, Strauss, Jack Blades, Red Beach, Brian Tishy, and so many others. And that's the non-Canadian group. So I say, it's got to be a monumental task to put this all together. So, when you went back and put this idea together, okay, all right, we're going to do a tribute album. How do you go out and say, all right, who do we find? And then eventually, how do we get the fit for the players to match them up with the right songs and with each other?
Yeah, that totally Mike. Mike Clink just, he had a vision for it. And we sat in the back seat while he, made these thoughts. And he not like he didn't consult us, but some of the calls he would make, you just mentioned Dee, for example, saying, lay it on the line. And, I'm familiar with this other work. And I guess in my head, I'm picturing, Rick's, sort of very, very high, reed-like voice, not like Dee's got a huskier voice, so you don't quite picture that. And yet Mike was so certain. He's like, no, he's going to smoke this. And of course he did. He killed it. Some are more obvious, like Sebastian we've played with before. He's played Rock and Roll Machine with us on stage. So we already knew that, that was obvious. We didn't even talk about who's going to do Rock and Roll Machine. It had to be Sebastian. Phil fooled us, when he did Allied Forces. Phil was the first phone call that Mike made, obviously, and was somewhat of an anchor on the project, being from Triumph to begin with. And yeah, but I didn't notice I know, for example, that he would sing Allied Forces as well as do all the guitar parts. So that was great. I mean, Phil's a great singer. Anybody that's heard him sing, not everyone has, because when he plays with Bon Jovi, he's not singing lead vocals or anything, but Phil's a great singer. So that was a surprise, as well as the arrangement was a bit of a change up. And using Nancy Wilson from Heart on Fight the Good Fight, I mean, what a complete left turn or right turn that was, because she has this floaty, melodic sort of beautiful cadence to her singing. And, in that one, Rick was kind of like hard edged and really pushing it. And she took it, made it her own, put her own signature on the song. Those are Mike Clink's producer calls, really. He would just come to us after the fact, kind of say, hey, guys, have a listen to this. This is a rough. And we'd hear it. And we never once second guessed him, because we could just see, his instincts were very, very good, and he knew what he was doing. Same things with all the musicians, like picking the right drummer or picking the right bass player. He's very strategic with everyone on every track.
Was there any aha moments where you're like, wow, you never envisioned your song done that way?
Yeah, and two different directions there too, John, because in some cases, a lot of the songs were done, in a similar fashion, let's say, to the original arrangement. So if I think about Mickey Thomas from Starship singing Spellbound, which I thought he absolutely killed it. And I never played it for my wife when I first heard the vocal, and at first she thought it was me. I said, that's not me, babe. That's I've always been a fan of his voice. Dean Castronovo from Journey, what a magnificent job he did on Never Surrender. I'm a big fan of his singing and his drumming. But both of those songs, they kind of went down a similar road, I suppose, to how we originally wrote the songs. But back over to Envy of None, Andy and Alex and Maya Wynn and the other group members took. I guess it would be Maya was really the one that, because her voice is so different, took that song in a completely different way. The drums on that David's drumming on there was just great as well. Very, very sort of very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Lean, very sparse. And Alex's guitars, Alex has got a certain technique, certain signature style that, all the years in Rush, everyone knows Alex's guitar signature. It really made that their own song. It's nothing like Triumph's version of Blinding Light Show. So I think fans will get a kick out of that, like hearing it like a new song.
Were you guys in the studio together? Was it all remote? Was it the span of 2-3 years? What was the recording process like?
Believe it or not, John, it was closer to 4 years or maybe even 4.5. And again, back to COVID. It was because recording studios were shut down. We'd originally planned we were going to do a bunch of recording at Metalworks here in Mississauga, and we were going to do a bunch in LA and some in New York. But what ended up happening was, the travel just became sort of impossible. So it was like everything kind of was bundled into Mike's World in Los Angeles, and East West Studios down there is a great studio, and some others. They worked in Slash's studio, I know. So there were some logistical challenges, and it was tougher when you had an artist that was New York based, or from the Northwest, like Nancy. I mean, there was different people that were harder to get involved. Envy of None did their track up here in Canada, so that was one that was completely remote, I guess I would say. But all in all, there were a heck of a lot of logistics to contend with. It wasn't like business as usual, and you can just get in studios and not have to worry about masking or anything like that. You can imagine if you have a drummer like Tommy Aldrich pounding the drums, man, he's exhaling a lot, or Kenny Aronoff or Brett Fitz. There's a lot of air coming off those drummers, right? Not to mention the vocalists.
I want to circle back to Blinding Light Show because, I'm starting to get a little warm. I'm warming up to Envy of None, as a hard rock metal fan. It's different, right? But I think she's got a beautiful voice. The new album, John and I have been having some debates about it, but I saw the name on the list and the song you chose to marry it up, it was the perfect fit just because of the type of song it is. And you're right. Yes, it's different, but I think that was the perfect marriage. But then I think of some of these other ones, like you mentioned Mickey Thomas. But how about Joey Belladonna on Magic Power and then Jeff Keith on Hold On? I mean, to me, there's segments on this album where you go through the 12 or 13 tracks and you're like, oh my God, what a vocal performance. And then others you're like, man, these are just straight out rockers, like the Dee Snider version or whatever. But, comment a little bit about, let's say, some of the other vocalists that performed down there.
Also, like Jeff Keith, for example, you mentioned, like he killed Hold On. And that song up here in Canada, by the way, was just the subject matter for Music Monday, which is the Coalition of Music Education's annual event. So it was sung across Canada by 200,000 kids in choirs and high school bands playing it and so on. Just a week ago, last Monday. But Jeff's spin on that song was fantastic. And I'm hoping that what we did up here in Canada on Music Monday somehow going to ricochet, more interest, as that, sort of circulates and all the high school choir videos and stuff come out. So it'll be interesting to see, where that song goes. And Joey Belladonna, I'll tell you what, singing drummers, so they're on the top of my list.
I know.
Him and Dean, right? And with Anthrax, who would know he would be the right voice for that song? One guy knew, Mike Clink, and of course when he played it for us, we were like, holy smokes, what an amazing, absolutely amazing vocal.
Yeah, I mean, I think of like the powerhouse, like another one of my favorites is I Live for the Weekend, because there's a lot of variety on there. I mean, you have up and coming rising star female vocalist Dorothy. I mean, she's all over the place. She's like a rising star. And then you have Tyler Connolly, your Canadian mate, and then Slash comes in and does a little guest appearance there too. But you got the dual trading off vocals, and then you got this like guitar work and then additional guitar work with Slash.
Yeah, so that was never a duet. Of course, when we recorded it, it was all my vocal. And that was one of Mike's ideas, to have the sort of the yin and yang going at the same time. And then he kind of picked it up with the guitars too, because, originally it was all Rick's guitars. And, this was a way to, I don't know, put some additional spices in the recipe. And I think he really reinvigorated the song. I Live for the Weekend was a song in various cities that just seemed to really, really hang in over the years, not as much of a top 40 anthem or anything like that, but a lot of the big AOR stations would just play that religiously every Friday. Why, I don't know.
Oh yeah. So it goes, right?
Talk about the two versions of Fight the Good Fight. How'd that come about?
So again, Mike thought that because Nancy really took it in such a different direction vocally, and as I said earlier, this beautiful melodic, softer touch, feathery. I'm searching for words here, but I just look at it as kind of like Nancy Wilson cadence. It's like this. She reminds me of sort of, the waves, the wind, nature, those sorts of things in a vocalist, because she has those subtle nuanced textures that a lot of vocalists don't have. I mean, they're just blowing, right? And she's got this other, set of gears or something that really make her vocals beautiful. And I think that what Mike was thinking was, we always did Fight the Good Fight as an encore song. And somehow he thought, there should be an encore on here. And maybe we would do one that's more in line with the original. So, maybe we have, what I'll call a ripping, vocal more in line with the original vocals that Rick Emmett did. I think that's what really in his mind.
Gil, how about, some of the performers? I mean, again, I know this was all done really through Mike, but there had to be feedback. I mean, in talking to one of the 50 guys or some of them on the album, I mean, you guys had to be an influence on them. I mean, what kind of things did you hear from the Dee Sniders and these other the world to say, man, Gil, you don't realize what Triumph was to me?
Well, the nicest comment that anybody made was, for me personally, was Dean Castronovo, and you can read it on the liner notes there. And I mean, I think he said if there was no me, there wouldn't have been him. I'm going to tell you right now, I totally disagree with that, because he has got a ton of talent, and it was very nice of him to say that. But I think that Dean Castronovo he was destined to do really great things, both on drums and with his amazing voice. Regardless wherever he'd seen us or heard me or anything else. I mean, that guy is an all-star in every sense of the word. But it was very, very nice comments. And yeah, there was a few others that came back through the studio just to Mike. People said things, like in the studios, and did some photos with him. They've done some nice things on social media. I mean, Sebastian he breaks my heart, the stuff he says. It just he's so kind, and he goes right back to Peterborough, where he grew up. And we played in Peterborough Memorial Gardens, of course, many times, and so he relates right back to that. Like before he was, hitting the big time with Skid Row, and he was just in the audience. So you hear these things, and they're very nice. I got to say that the musicians, and everyone involved in this project were so gracious. The things that they said about Triumph, and it's hard to tell. I don't take compliments all that well. I just find that I feel like we were very lucky that this happened, and very, like I said earlier in the interview, just grateful. And the comments just made it even sweeter.
We're talking with Gil Moore of Triumph. The brand new tribute album, Magic Power, an all-star tribute to Triumph, comes out June 5th everywhere. We're going to take a quick break, but if you enjoyed this interview, subscribe to the pod, leave a review, get up to metalmayhemroc.com, sign up for the newsletter, and join our community. When we come back, we're going to find out what Rick Emmett and Mike Levine think about this, and if the guys were ever in the studio with all these 50-plus all-stars. We'll be right back. We're talking with Gil Moore, drummer of Triumph. The brand new album, Magic Power, all-star tribute to Triumph, drops on June 5th. Hey, Gil, at any point were all three members of Triumph, yourself, Rick Emmett, or Mike Levine, in the studio when these guys were doing these tribute songs? And what was their take on these songs?
We were never at the recordings because they all took place, somewhere other than Metalworks. Originally, we were going to be around for some of it, and there were some musicians that would have been, asked to perform, but the just wasn't feasible during COVID to record up here and have Mike have to travel up here and maybe get quarantined for 2 weeks or something crazy like that. Like, as far as Mike and Rick, like, honestly, I think the comments I'm making, I can speak for all three of us. We talked a lot about these tracks, John, when they would, every time Mike would have a rough cut, like he would send it up and we would bounce it around amongst the three of us because he always wanted our feedback. And we gave him some feedback, but most of the time it was, Mike, you're doing a smoking job here.
Yeah.
And we don't want to start being backseat drivers. I think really our record company, Roundhill, I think they probably felt the same way. I think they were getting rough cuts and they were just going, this album is tracking really, really good. Mike is very methodical about what he's doing, and he's made great selections. There's been no foul ups or got to do this one over again because it was the wrong day or the wrong group of people. It just didn't work. Like a bad line in hockey that can't score goals. No, that didn't happen.
Speaking of hockey, I got to say, I mean, Mike is the only guy we haven't had on our show, and I'd like to get him on someday because my question always is, back in those MTV days, he always wore hockey jerseys on stage, and like, does he still have them hanging in some closet probably?
I don't know. I'd have to ask him that question. I'm sure he's got a few of them, but it's been very interesting during the playoffs up here in Canada. Rogers Sportsnet has used Lay It on the Line as their main commercial. And so they've been playing Lay It on the Line like the national anthem in Canada all throughout the play. And they're going to continue, as far as I know, throughout the playoffs. And the on the Shazam's chart, it was like number 1 3 weeks ago. So it's been a wild ride for Triumph and hockey. So much so that the Hockey Hall of Fame has got a bunch of Triumph swag from our merch store in America. So I guess we're now sort of somehow I guess that was the only way I was getting in the NHL. Let's put it that way. So I was a kid. That's what I wanted to do, and I wasn't good enough. But I'll take it if one of our songs can get in there. That's as close as I'm going to get to the Stanley Cup.
Well, the T-shirt that you were selling on the website, I bought one the other day because I wanted to see what you guys were selling. And I said, "Oh my God, look at this Lay It on the Line T-shirt! A hockey player with a killer guitar in it." I mean, I'm an Islander fan, being from New Jersey, New York, so we're out. But now, as of the time of this recording, your Leafs are eliminated. It's another disappointment, right?
Well, yeah, we still got the Oilers, So I guess there's a lot of pride about hockey in Canada, of course. We feel like it's our game, right? So,
Yeah.
I guess when you get pummeled by your friends across the border, there's a little bit of extra hurt there. It's a sport, it's a game, right? So, I guess for me growing up, and seeing the NHL expand and everything, when you think of Florida having such a good team, and I'm always thinking, no, wait a sec, Florida, that's where I play golf. That's not where I play hockey.
Yeah.
Ice will all melt in Florida. How the heck did these guys win the Stanley Cup? So it's kind of a funny thing, I guess, when you grow up as a young hockey player in Canada and you play on frozen rinks outside, and even ponds. I played on frozen ponds. So, there's not too many frozen ponds down in Florida last time I checked.
Well, Gil, I think you got a new merchandising idea. You got to tell Mike he needs to make a Triumph hockey jersey with his picture on it and sell it to the general public.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I know, like our merch company, Manic Merch out of Syracuse. That's where they're based, and I know they're putting out a full, not only that the Lay It on the Line shirt with the Stanley Cup playoffs on it, but I know they're also putting out a full-on hockey jersey that's coming in a couple of weeks. Because they sent us the artwork to take a look at. So, yeah, I guess we're the hockey hard rock band now or something.
Yeah, you guys could always goof up and dress up like the Hanson brothers, the three of you. That would be a good one too.
Halloween. Yeah, I did a promo picture with a hockey stick the other day. I felt like a goofball, but whatever. It's all in good fun, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's tied to charity. Like this hockey stick I posed with is going to be auctioned off for Ronald McDonald House. Is a really great charity up here. We're going to try to raise some money for them on a couple nights at an event. So yeah, it's good if you can tie music and hockey, or music and golf has now got a pretty big brand association. I think those things are all good, especially if there's a charity that's going to benefit from some of the fun stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Gil, I wanted to ask you, thinking back to like your old touring days, like you guys played a lot of places with a lot of bands. And I think, a guy like Jason Sheff or Dave Amato or Lawrence Gowan, right? These guys are, Chicago, Triumph, REO Speedwagon, even Heart. I mean, did this trigger any memories for you guys when you were putting this project together to say, wow, when you look back at our touring history, what an amazing group of bands we played with through all those years? Any memories or great acts you followed?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you kind of follow all your contemporaries in a way, especially bands that are sort of, you're crisscrossing with when you're touring, and a lot of the times, you're I guess becoming a fan of those other artists. Not just the older bands. So as an example of the older bands, of course, I've always said, Ian Pace's drumming and Deep Purple was something I was really hooked on. John Bonham, very much hooked on Led Zeppelin and John Bonham's playing. Whereas the groups that you're mentioning, that we played on shows with, whether it was a Journey or an AC/DC or a Heart or any of those groups, it's different because you're kind of on the circuit at the same time. Whereas when it was Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple, I was younger in the audience watching what was going on. And you really get to see how it's so tough for a band to make it. I mean, 99.99% of bands never get beyond Joe's Bar. So all of these groups you're talking about, they were all, they had something really, really good about them. Otherwise, they would have never got out of the garage either. When we played on the US Festival, for example, on Heavy Metal Sunday, it was like every single artist on there that day on Heavy Metal Sunday, pretty much every one of those could sell out the arenas in LA as well. Yeah. And so you realized, or for that matter, in the other markets in LA or beyond California, and so you realized, gee, it's pretty good company. And whether each band would have like something like, say, Judas Priest, for example, like a very, very distinct sound, the guitar tones and so on, and so the way Rob performed on stage, and then another band would be just completely different. Well, Van Halen, well, nothing like Judas Priest, but Van Halen's Van Halen, Judas Priest, Journey's Journey. But they all have a unique signature of one sort or another that makes them appeal to the audience. And ultimately, I guess you look at them and you learn something from each one. Like, okay, because you don't want to be a copycat. You don't want to start to sound like somebody else because you like them, but you also want to, kind of pay attention to what appealing to people and try to, I guess, as you're growing as a musician, trying to understand like what it is about music that makes it good or makes it appealing. Whether it's just your instrument, like in my case, drums, like always trying to improve, always trying to practice and get better, or whether it's in the songwriting side. It's all I know is that we were really lucky. The era, like I think in the 70s and the 80s, there were a lot of really, really good bands. A lot of really good music was made. There was a great radio setup, throughout North America.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing for a group like us is we got to go to all the small markets. It wasn't just about Dallas and New York and Chicago. We would go into, if we were in Illinois, we would play Chicago, but we'd also go out into the Champagnes and the Peorias and those. If we were in Detroit, we would also do the Kalamazoo's and the Saginaw's and the Flints and all that. So that was a great experience for us. And I think the other bands that you're mentioning, they also toured a lot of those markets. Like who's toured more than REO Speedwagon, for crying out loud? They played 8 million gigs.
Right.
Yeah, there was the arena rock era. You had a tour, and it was you'd go down the thruway, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Glens Falls, Utica. Then you go down through Pennsylvania, then you hit Jersey. Probably did 3 dates in Jersey, and it was.
We played all those cities. You're right, and they were great. They were great areas, and I always found the hubbub in the big cities. So if you're playing in Philadelphia, you would be, this is Philadelphia, and we're playing New York tomorrow, and this, that big city sort of thing. But your point, like if you're playing Glens Falls, New York, it's like going on a vacation, in a way, for a band, because great arena there, great fans, great rate, everything was great, but you're kind of isolated from the hubbub, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So those are the things. I maybe I'm not explaining it right about the touring side of it, but I just found, pre-internet, streaming and all this stuff, it was all very regionalized. And I think that maybe that's the reason why the fans of those bands that we've mentioned, why their fandom is so strong and intense. And I think it's because of the personal experience of having seen them multiple times in their markets, because everyone that we just talked about, they all toured hard like we did. We just toured. And that's what you had to do in those days because of the regional radio, as I'll say, no streaming, the things that we take for granted today.
Gil, I always make this analogy. These old bands, they're like old friends. You never lose your old friends, and you can always revisit them, and you take the best out of the bands. And like what you were saying about each band had their own personality. Triumph wasn't like the Scorpions or Van Halen or Judas Priest, but you all played the US Festival.
It was definitely a different, I think, fan experience, pre-internet. So it was more personal, I think. Like sometimes when I see these songs that'll all of a sudden be this streaming number that's like number 1 in the world, and you look at it and you go, there's no artist, or there's an artist that just seems like a vapor. They're there 1 minute and they're gone the next, and not always. I mean, there's some artists that are knocking it out of the park, that again are ubiquitous like that. Like God, I mean, what Taylor Swift did over the last, few years with the Eras Tour is, unprecedented, and so on. What Drake has done from Toronto, just in the weekend, phenomenal numbers. Mm-hmm. But there's also, I think there's another, I don't know what to call it, not a genre, but there just seems to be another sort of swelling tide of music that people can't really put their fingers on. Like they can't relate to the artists, they might hear a song, they might not know who it is. Oh, I like that song. But there's not that singular connection that I think a lot of the bands in the 70s, 80s had.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's in one sense, it's easier to get your music out worldwide based on, the technology that we have today and streaming to the phones and so on and so forth. But maybe not as easy to have a personal connection between an artist and a fan as the old fashioned, get together inside a venue, whether it's a club or an arena or whatever it is, and just rock out.
Totally. I got my first car that doesn't have a CD player, and I'm struggling with it. So that should tell you something, because I don't know what to do without CDs. I like to buy them. I like to play them. I like to look at them. I like to read them. I'm like, do I have to go out and buy like a plug-in CD player into the cigarette lighter? But then there's no cigarette lighters in cars anymore either. So I don't know. I'm like I'm in a quandary.
Yeah, I guess you either got to get hip and do a Spotify playlist and hook it up through Bluetooth or whatever to your car, or else you could also go retro and go get an aftermarket cassette machine and put it in there and get somebody to wire it up for you.
or I was thinking I'll buy like a 20-year-old car. That's just got low mileage or something. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter, because Saturday morning when I was taking my 10-year-old to her softball game, it was about 8:30 in the morning, and I was playing the new album in the car, and I got shushed. Gil. That should say something. Dad, it's 8:30. I'm ready to softball. Shh, turn this down.
Oh man, that's funny, because when I go with my kids in the car, and whenever it comes like it's music time, it's like, well, Dad wants ZZ Top. That's the first thing that anybody says in the car. Dad wants ZZ Top.
The respect
factor.
Wrong. Hey,
what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Gil, talking about your website, I've noticed there's a lot of good stuff up there on your vault, merchandise, old pictures, personal pictures, memorabilia, ticket stubs. How do you decide what goes up there? Because you guys probably have thousands and thousands of artifacts that you could throw up there.
Honestly, Lance, we can't. We can't keep up with that stuff. So, Greg Ross, who does our merch from Syracuse, he looks after all that, and he keeps pushing us, and hey, could you do this, could do that, and I have some really, really good help at Metalworks. So there's a team there, and they'll come up with a lot of the ideas, and Andy Curran from Envy of None, who's a personal buddy. Andy helped us with a lot of that stuff. And you realize, we've got stuff sitting around that people just would get a kick out of. And the only way I can relate to that is I have to go back and say, okay, so when I was a fan of, and it doesn't even need to be music, it could be sports, and I can go back and I say, okay, so if I became a fan when I was young and I could have found out these details about, say I'm into golf. So if it was a famous golfer and I can find out some cool stuff about how he practices or little, backstage stuff, I'll call it. I can relate to that. So if you're a Triumph fan and something that Mike and Rick and I might just think is kind of nothing, but it's got some intrinsic value just in curiosity or something like that.
Yeah.
So Greg's going to keep developing that. He hasn't got all the time in the world to spend on Triumph. He's got other stuff to do too. But we're trying to do that. Just the fans have been so great to us, and I think what happened when we did the documentary in which came out in 2021, the feedback off the documentary was unbelievable. So part of that whole thing was realizing, what, these people didn't forget about us. We cannot forget about them. So therefore, any way we can do something and this is why the tribute album, when the Round Hill wanted to do this, we thought, well, heck, yeah, if you can do it, it's the guy could do it is Mike Clink, but if you could put that together, that'll be really good for the fans, because it'll be something different, something new, and because we're not out there touring, it's a way to kind of keep them engaged with us, I guess you'd say, and not just, be a memory that just kind of fades away.
Yeah.
Well, now you're talking about the old memorabilia. What about the new stuff? You have a Rock and Roll Machine collectibles. Give us a sneak peek on that. What's that all about?
Well, I don't really know. Again, Greg curates all that. So he comes up with the ideas, And then he starts working with some of our staff at Metalworks to get some of the some of the artwork or some of the ideas, some of the objects, things like that. So I don't have a good answer for you there. I'll be surprised as just like you will when I get to see it.
I gotta ask, any new music from the band? Do you guys play together? Any new old releases? What's next for Triumph?
I would say the next the next stop on the Triumph train right now is while the tribute album was going on, I was working with our lighting director from back in the day, Paul Dexter from Masterworks in Los Angeles, and I got interested in holograms because Paul was doing Ronnie Dio. He was doing a Ronnie Dio hologram, and I talked to him and I said, this hologram stuff, like, I don't know, it's very interesting because I've always personally been into the theater of a live show, and I thought this was intriguing. And he said, well, I'm done with Ronnie. I'm doing Frank Zappa. Come out and check it out. So I came to your hometown there in Rochester, went to the Kodak Theater, checked it out. And then I sat down afterwards with Paul and I just said, yeah, forget it. Like, hologram's not going to work for Triumph. And, he said, why? And I said, well, the hologram itself is really cool, but it's a feature on a platform, but it's not a platform. And he said, what was that? I said, it's a feature on a platform, but it's not a platform in and of itself. So we got, after two more beers, it was kind of, okay, what should we do? And we started talking about mixed reality because here in Mississauga, my Metalworks school is hooked up with Microsoft as a partner, and they have a mixed reality team. And we learned about this because we kind of get this backstage access into some of the great things that Microsoft are doing. So we said, let's experiment there. Let's see what we can find out. So we just went on a sort of a reconnaissance mission to find out as much as we could about emerging technologies and, AR and VR and all this stuff. And we finally came up with a concept to tour. We went through, I guess, 3 iterations of the technology that we were going to use. I've been asked a lot, is it like what ABBA's doing in London, which is beautiful, by the way, but no, it's not. It's not the same thing at all. And that I think Kiss is going to do the same thing as ABBA. They're working with the same producers from what I understand. So no, our idea was to have something we could tour. This gets back to what I said about playing all the secondary markets and going right to the people in the small towns as well as the big, the Chicagos and the New Yorks and so on. And this is a way we think we can tour this as opposed to it being a residency like what ABBA's doing or some of the stuff they're trying to do at the Sphere in Vegas and so on, where you have to be in that particular venue. We wanted it to be the other way around and say, no, we're going to bring the circus to you. You don't have to come to the circus. So looks like Phil's going to lead that reincarnated Triumph and reincarnation of Triumph. And probably some of the guys from the tribute album might be the musicians to fill that out. Cool. And Mike and Rick and I, we would appear virtually in it. So my joke is we'll be the first 6-piece power trio of all time. If we can pull it off, that's what's next for Triumph, to answer your question.
Well,
all right.
Groundbreaking.
Album comes out June 6th.
Comes out June the 6th. And if we're successful with getting the mixed reality tour launched, that'll be hopefully this year. If it's not in the earlier part of next year, and we'll just see where it goes and how it continues to progress.
Then. Well, triumphmusic.com, everything about Triumph, what they're doing, what they're going to do, what they did. That's your one-stop shopping. And again, Friday, June 6th, Magic Power, All-Star Tribute to Triumph. Gil, thanks for rearranging things today and joining us. It's always fun talking with you, and we love our neighbors to the north.
Well, we love our neighbors to the south, too. So make no mistake about that. A lot of this, hyperbole that we all get bombarded with online every single day about news. I know I speak for, so many Canadians and I had the pleasure of going through every state. And I always said, yeah, if you haven't traveled the States, you don't realize it's 50 countries because there's 50 groups of people. They all are, they all are beautiful in their own way. The communities are great, and the differences and the subtle differences are great. But you know what? There's really everything is so similar in Canada and in the United States. Like we're all really very, very similar communities, I would say. And I think Americans have been Canada's best friends, and hopefully, we've been equally loyal to our American friends, and I want that to continue that way. And certainly, music is the one thing that is not controversial. Music is something that brings people together. So let's just hope that we can stick with sports, and we'll stick with hockey and music, and everything will be just wonderful.
That's good.
We're praying, man.
Throw a couple beers in there, and we got the trifecta. And Gil, we're going to ring the bell at Metalworks one of these days. John and I are going to just go up there and ring the bell, and we're going to say we're here.
You know what? You can do that. You give us a heads up. I'd love to see you. We'll sit around, have a coffee, and we'll talk some music. Anytime. Open invitation.
So I got to see some Triumph stuff in the Hall of Fame. I'm overdue.
All right, Gil Moore, Triumph, thank you. Take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you down the line, buddy. Thank you.
See you, John. See you, Lance.
See ya.
Bye, Gil.
Take care. Thanks
Cheers.
again.
Thank you.
Metal for Life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.